Hi, good day. I'm Wayne Duvenage from the organisation Undoing Tax Abuse, otherwise known as OUTA. It's the 24th of October, and this is our weekly wrap. And what a week it has been, especially in the space of OUTA's work fighting corruption, maladministration, and just sheer waste of taxpayers' money. Today, though, we're going to reflect on developments at the Madlanga Commission and the ad hoc committee that is delving into political interference in criminal justice syndicates infiltrating our police force and other criminal justice systems elements. We're also going to look at Eskom's announcements to relax the solar registration conditions. I'm going to raise a few concerns around Seta CEO appointments, Panyaza Lesufi's disbanding of the Gauteng Crime Prevention Wardens, and just give a brief update on a Parliamentary Oversight Report that we're going to release next week. I'm just going to stop briefly and to take this opportunity to ask you to please like and subscribe to this channel. Why it's important for us is that the more we can get our messages out there, the more we can create and empower people to become active citizens and participate in the fight against corruption in this country. So liking and subscribing is going to help us grow our viewership, and we're reaching about 10,000 now, and we would love to double that in the next couple of weeks. So please just take a second to like and subscribe and share this video. On top of that, while we're talking about that, OUTA is a publicly funded organization, funded by thousands of individuals out there and small businesses, a couple of larger ones. But it's tight out there. NGOs will tell you it is very tough to run organizations like this that needs funding, constant funding. So we need to grow our supporter base, and it takes a few minutes. If you go to OUTA, that's outa.co.za, and you take 5 minutes, click on the support or join now tab, and donate whatever you want, be it the price of a cup of coffee, a pizza, you decide. Every bit counts. Thank you for your support. Now back to our weekly wrap. So, as I said, a very interesting week at the, let's start with the Madlanga Commission and the Ad hoc Portfolio Committee. I don't want to delve too deep into this. There's so much that is being reported on this, but what we are seeing is a mix of secret witnesses that are taking to the stand and revelations of police officers who moonlight as hitmen and assassinations and suspects on the run relating to cases of inflated prices, tender irregularities at Transnet and other matters. I think clearly what we could see this week and unfolding from last week is that sidelined Police Minister Mchunu appears to be very guarded in how he's answering questions that are put to him. And these two inquiries, by the way, running one in Parliament and one at the Madlanga Commission, side by side, are providing a very interesting scenario that enables the different responses to be corroborated and for cross-questioning across those two entities being watched by both parties, both the evidence leaders as well as the parliamentarians. So very, very interesting developments. But what is unfolding are questions about how close the relationships are between those in authority and a range of dubious characters. Be it Vusi Matlala, who's currently serving time on other matters, Brown Mkhotsi and others. It really does beg some serious questions as to what indeed are people in positions of authority even doing, engaging with these dubious characters, even if it is, I don't really know them, but I do visit them. I've had encounters with them. If you're in a position of authority, you really need to be careful who you engage with, because the digital fingerprints of WhatsApp messages, of videos that are taken, are going to put people into very, very hot spots and compromised positions. And so if you're a person like a Minister of Police, you better make sure that your advisors are telling you who you're engaging with, Minister, is not savory. This is going to come back and bite you. Don't even go there. Don't even message. Don't even engage. please. But now we have all of this unfolding, and even the president, Ramaphosa's name is now being dragged into the fray. I mean, Khangwani Mayamela, his nephew, is a central figure in the Tembisa hospital fraud, but it's also, his name has been brought into the broader investigation into these allegations of police corruption overseen by the Madlanga Commission. So first we hear, again, the president didn't really know him, doesn't have dealings with him. Well, then he does. Yes, he has been seen. He actually has engaged with him, which was not quite the picture we were being told. And yeah, I think he's going to have to come and answer to some questions in the ad hoc committee and possibly even the commission. As regards our previous police minister, Cele, a very interesting testimony about his view of Mchunu as an apartheid-style career policeman. That's very, very confusing. And then we see Mchunu retracting a statement that he made with allegations against Cele, some error there. You know, as I said, it could go on. What is unfolding is that there's plenty of serious allegations that are giving rise to what is becoming a serious crisis of legitimacy and an erosion of public trust and systemic risk of lawlessness that is taking hold with this unfettered infiltration of our criminal justice system by criminal syndicates. And this is a serious concern. We've also seen this week, IPID, the Independent Police Investigating Directorate, a report put out that shows that we have now reached the highest number of deaths at the hands of police since 1997. And this is chilling stuff. This is serious because it coincides with these damning revelations of the Madlanga Commission about top-level chaos and, as the Daily Maverick puts it, a rudderless police force. This is serious stuff. So what's happening is these revelations paint a picture of a justice system that is under stress and that law enforcement is politically captured, is economically compromised. And the chain of investigations, the prosecutions, and everything else that goes with it has been seriously compromised. And we really have to deal with this. So it's no wonder that communities, specifically those who live in high crime areas and poorer communities, report that police just don't act, they're too slow to act. And sometimes the communities become the victims, and they become intimidated and threatened for reporting their concerns around corruption and police infiltration and interference. And are we surprised that the public have lost faith in the system entirely? Not at all. And so what analysts are warning is that this infiltration is not just corruption. It's a threat to the very stability of policing and the rule of law in this country. And that is our concern here. So we'll have to see what unfolds with these two commissions and inquiries running side by side. It is too early to tell, but from both sides there are questions, and from both sides there's good information flowing. It's what happens hereafter. But let me move on now to another interesting development this week, and that is Eskom's announcement pertaining to the relaxation of conditions of registration of small-scale embedded generation units, otherwise known as SSEG, which is really what rooftop solar installations are all about. As you know, Eskom is requiring us to, and the public to, and businesses to register their solar installations with Eskom. And this, by the way, is specific to residents and businesses that draw the electricity directly from Eskom. But it's coming in municipalities as well. And it gets a bit messy there, and we have to be very sure and guarded as to what's happening. But just to recap, Eskom claimed that solar installations do need to be registered according to a number of conditions. And one of those conditions is that the installation must be signed off by an electrical engineer registered with the Engineering Council of South Africa. Now, we welcome Eskom's decision, by the way, for this relaxation. You no longer need an electrical engineer to sign off. It can be done by an electrician, a registered electrician, that is allowed to give certificates of compliance. And this is in line with the regulations. We felt that the original requirement was extremely onerous. It was costly. It was overkill. And this is not about OUTA believing that the safety of these installations is not an issue. What we're saying is there was an overkill. And Eskom have acknowledged this, and they've changed these conditions. So we must welcome this. And I think, what we are seeing unfolding now is an Eskom management that is prepared to engage with civil society in lengthy meetings. We've had 2 meetings, several hours long, each one. And this is an organization that is very different to the Eskom of yesteryear. You have leadership that is prepared to listen and engage. And that for us is very, very encouraging. So let's watch the space. I'm sure there are going to be more meetings with Eskom, and I'm sure there are going to be more developments along this front, because we still have questions. But for now, good movements in the right direction. So thank you to Eskom's leadership for that. I want to talk a little bit now about developments in the Sectoral Education Training Authority. This sits in the higher education space, and we've been very involved in gross maladministration, corruption that takes place in the SETAs. And this week, we saw the announcement, not so much by the minister himself, which should have come out by now, but by CEOs who have already spent 5 years as CEOs of some of these sectoral education training authorities. Their term had come to an end. The 6-month extension of that had come to an end. And everything is just so backlogged and over time that for us it was about what we're hoping the minister would do is ensure that SETA leadership has changed. The SETAs in this country and what is actually happening in this space is diabolical, quite frankly. Businesses losing trust in the SETAs, the skills development levies are being wasted. If you look at research that has been done by the Bureau of Economic Research at Stellenbosch University, they have spoken about and reflected on how more money is poured into a system that produces less certification of learnerships, and that's a problem. What we've found, and whistleblowers have given us information, is the extent of corruption that is taking place. And here we talk about contracts that needn't have been introduced at inflated prices. That is corruption to us. And what we've been asking these boards to do over the past is to start holding executives and the leadership of those SETAs to account. And those boards have looked away. And here's the opportunity for the minister to appoint new boards and new chairpersons. And that process should have finished by March this year, and it hasn't. Now, we know there's been some changes in leadership, but we have also written to the minister a number of times, this is the new minister, Buti Manamela, to meet with him so that we can show him and speak to him about what is going wrong at these SETAs before he appoints these CEOs. And what did we learn this week? That he is going ahead with appointing these CEOs, some of them very, very controversial, like Gugu Mkhize, the CEO of the insurance SETA. Why do we say that? Well, we've got ample information to show gross irregularities that have been taken place. And this, by the way, is a CEO who's presided over a SETA that has had qualified audits repeatedly over a number of years. And in order for a CEO to be reappointed, one of the conditions or in the regulations is that there must be satisfactory performance. Well, repeated irregularities by the Auditor General and qualified audits is not satisfactory performance, quite frankly. But when you hear of all the other stuff that we've uncovered and questions that we've asked and had to go through lengthy PIA applications which are partially answered by the NCETA, we can assure you that there's some serious, glaring irregularities and questionable expenditure that have still not been answered. And we believe that if the minister had have known about this, which we think he should have, certainly those who've given him the recommendations to reappoint Gugu Mkhize, they should have known, they should have done their research. They would have known about all these allegations. They would have possibly even engaged with OUTA, but they didn't. And so there was, right at the end of September, a rushed attempt to get 7 CEOs reappointed. And we know that 3 of them have made their appointments public already in social media, and yet the minister hasn't even announced this. So there's some serious concerns around SETA appointments. And really what's happening here, again, is this mistrust, this trust deficit that just gets wider and wider when ministers go ahead and appoint people that we believe are not professionalising the state and government services, that are continuously allowing the plunder and waste of taxpayers' money to happen. We hope the minister meets with us, and we hope he takes our allegations and our concerns seriously. And better still, because we're not going away on these issues, that he reverses that decision to appoint Gugu Mkhize as the Seta CEO. Another interesting development this week, Panyaza Lesufi disbanding the Gauteng Crime Prevention Wardens. A day or so ahead of the public protector, Kholeka Kgaleka's findings that this decision of his to establish and deploy these wardens was irregular and unlawful. You know, there was no legal authority granted to incorporate these wardens, and yet he went ahead and did so 2 years ago. You would think that Panyaza Lesufi's his advisors and others would have looked deeply into what he was doing and whether it had passed legal muster. And now we know 2 years later it didn't. There was a lot of concerns raised about, was this a political ploy? Was this, leading up to elections? Is it really about job creation and trying to tackle crime in the city, or in the province? If you just look at how effective it was, many will tell you it wasn't effective. These are people that are paid stipends. And what the Premier needs to do is do this properly. If you're going to employ people, make sure they are trained, make sure it's done all within the law, make sure they are paid a proper salary, not a stipend, and make sure that we don't end up in a situation where we are right now, where all their conduct now has been questioned as being illegal. And there have been people that have been beaten up to an inch of their lives by these wardens. Now what's going to happen? Are we going to see claims against the province that you and I have to eventually ultimately pay for? This is sad. This is really, really pathetic, quite frankly. This is not how you run governments, and yet we see more of this blundering and maladministration by our politicians. And now they want to move them into the space of traffic officers. Seriously? I mean, why do we need traffic officers? Why doesn't the government just fix the damn traffic lights? Why don't they paint the roads? Paint the markings, get our roads into international high standards, that we can't even introduce semi-autonomous vehicles in this country, let alone autonomous vehicles, because we don't even have clear road markings and road signs. We have a serious problem. But now we're going to employ thousands of traffic officers. And it's under the guise now of not security, it's a road safety. Well, there are other ways you fix road safety, Mr. Lesufi. There are other ways you do that. And if you're trying to create jobs, then create jobs and say so. And then just employ people. Go ahead and become an employment agency. That's not how you run a country. Quite frankly, this is a farce. And it needs to be dealt with meaningfully. It doesn't make sense. I also reflected that OUTA does, every year we do a Parliamentary Oversight Report. Well, this year's one that covers the first year of the 7th administration. This is the new administration under Government of National Unity, comes out next week. We have a good, interesting webinar on this, and our parliamentary and research team have done a good job in putting together an interesting report that's going to reflect on what is working, what isn't working, and how effective our parliament has been over the last year. To our Protea women's cricket team, you've done us proud. You're climbing to the top of the World Cup standings, 10 points from the last 6 games, having won 5 in a row at the T20 World Cup series. This is the stuff that just gets us to realize how united we are as a nation. So well done. Thank you, Proteas. You uplift our souls, and good luck against the formidable opponents on Saturday, Australia. In closing, I just want to say that there's a lot of debate that is ensuing about the state of our country. And terms like mafia state are being bandied around as common descriptions of where we are. Now, there's no doubt that our state institutions have been infiltrated by criminal syndicates and that the nation is floundering and service delivery is severely compromised as a result of our government's inability, or probably more like unwillingness, to strengthen our criminal justice system, to tackle crime and corruption in a manner that we should be able to do so. And the question is why? Why are we in this position? Well, it all sits at the feet of the president. Everything that deals with a meaningful change for any country to tackle corruption and criminal syndicates rests with the president of the country. And here it is, Cyril Ramaphosa's challenge. You know, if he was serious about tackling corruption and the scourge of this criminal syndicates that are infiltrating and creating absolute angst, anxiety, and despair and frustration and depression in this country, he could fix it. It's that simple, because a president goes ahead and deals with the capacitation and the funding that needs to be determined through his Minister of Finance that channels to the criminal justice system, to professionalize them, to give them the independent powers that they need, which this is the stuff that's been given to him in a report by the National Anti-Corruption Advisory Council. You know, how do we tackle the protection of whistleblowers? How do we tackle the transparency and the meaningful use of procurement systems? How do we make sure that our public Section 9 institutions and the NPA and the Hawks and so forth are properly and professionally capacitated with systems? The courts have all the necessary requirements to make sure that it doesn't take years to get matters into court. All of this sits in the fingertips and palms and hands of our president. And yet he's reluctant to seriously go there. Why? Because he is the head of a political party, the African National Congress, which quite frankly, in the eyes of many and myself, is the most corrupt political party in a democratic state in the world, quite frankly. I'm not talking Russia and China here. This president presides over a party that has the control of the purse strings of this nation in its hands. And the plundering and the robbing of state institutions and infiltration thereof by syndicates, by external people, manipulated by internal people, people in positions of power, is all because they've lost control. So no wonder you see the polls now that are showing the ANC being trashed. It's not going to be around. You'll see very interesting developments in the next elections. That is going to happen about a year's time from now. I don't know if we can wait to the following national elections in 2029. We've got no option to wait. But our democracy is in our hands, and we have work to do as the public. And until these elections and between these elections, it is the role of civil society and you and I as active citizens to hold the baton, to hold the fort, while we recorrect the path that this country, the trajectory that this country is on. Because let me tell you, and I've said it a number of times, we are punching so far below our weight. We have immense potential. We are a united nation. We're an incredibly wealthy, rich nation in our diversity, in our flora, our fauna, our minerals, our coastline, our beauty. And as a nation, we are rich, but we are made poorer by politicians who abuse their power, and we must hold them to account. Thank you for listening. Till next time, have a great weekend.